Are you sacrificing your family on the altar of work, of progress, of your business? I once had a pastor who, and he'd said this statement, it's always stuck with me. When he was talking one day and preaching one Sunday about boundaries, and that was kind of what he was talking about, but I'm going to say margin. So he was talking about creating margin, but boundaries around his private life and his, and being the pastor of the church. He said, I am not going to sacrifice my family on the altar of ministry. And I was like, man, that just makes so much sense. And I've never thought of it that way. But I've been thinking through that a lot as I have been building my business, particularly over the last 6 months or so. And that is what we're kind of talking about today, is not sacrificing family, not sacrificing relationships on the altar of your business, of your ministry, of your whatever it is you're doing. What it is your business, it's your profession. We don't want to sacrifice our family and relationships on the altar of progress or getting ahead. Hi, welcome to Legacy Her Way. This is a podcast where we explore how women define and build legacy on their own terms. And I'm your host, Tanya Hendricks. And today is a solo episode. The podcast, we have 2 episodes a week. One is a guest episode and the other is a solo episode. So this is a solo episode. So thank you for joining me. And so legacy isn't just about what we leave behind someday. It's about the choices we're making right now, who we're building for, what we're building and preserving, and how we create peace of mind and margin, or as you've heard me talk about, harmony. We're trying to create harmony along the way. And today's conversation, we are diving into the margin, finding that harmony, and also ensuring that we are keeping the main thing the main thing. I hear all the time, and I've seen it personally and professionally, but when someone's on their deathbed, they're not saying, man, I wish I'd had one more consultation with somebody, or man, I wish I'd made another $1,000, or I wish I'd made that networking meeting. What people are thinking about on their deathbed and what they are, as they're, someone gets that terminal diagnosis and they got, weeks to live, months to live. It's the things that matter are the people who they love, the friendships, the relationships, spouses, children, parents, siblings, friends, whoever that is that you just love and want to soak in all the time you can. That is who you think about. And it is easy to put some of those relationships aside as we're trying to build something. I've talked about it on here before that, I spend a lot of time working on the business. I mean, it takes a lot of my time. And one of my goals has over the last 6 months has been to find that harmony, find that margin in my life so that I don't sacrifice my relationships. I don't sacrifice my marriage on the altar of this business. And so some of the things I have been putting in place over the last few months has been so that I am not spending all day, every day on the business. I have a stopping point in the evening so that the evening times I can spend with my husband. And then there's some weekends I have to spend some time working because I have certain things going on. But I try to spend at least one day of the weekend not working and doing things for the family, with the family, spending time with Ron, and making sure that I do not sacrifice that marriage. Because, I mean, as you've heard me say, my why, the reason I am pursuing what I'm pursuing is for my family. It's for my spouse. It's for my stepson and his future family. It's for my extended family with my siblings and my nephews and my niece. I'm building for them. And I can't sacrifice those relationships as I'm building. So I have to find that harmony. And I have put a stopping point. When I was in law school, we called it a drop dead time. So when my study group in law school, when we would be studying and preparing for finals, we had a drop dead time, which meant that was the last time. Like if it was 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, we stopped studying. That was it. Drop dead, stop studying, go get some sleep. So I have instituted that in my life now. 7 p.m. is my drop dead time. No more work after 7. Again, there are some exceptions here and there when I've got things, projects and things or deadlines I'm trying to meet. Like as I'm recording this, I'm trying to finalize an office action response to a trademark. So I've been working in the evenings and on the weekends to get that finalized. So there are some exceptions. But overall, we don't want to sacrifice those families. And as I've shared with you, I read through the book Margin by Richard Swenson. And one of the things that he shares in this book is the same thing. It's about guarding our relationships, guarding our mental health, guarding our spiritual health. And if we don't, that's when we're going to encounter problems when it comes to progress. So if we are pursuing something, many of us in business we're pursuing, whether it's more money for the business, whether it's more clients, whatever that goal is, we're trying to build our business. We are pursuing progress in that. And as we're pursuing progress, we can't trample on the relationships. So most people consider progress and success in terms of wealth, in terms of the material world, or it could be more knowledge and more information. And most of our pain points come from our social environments, comes from our family, comes from our friends. And so while we are trying to build, we can't stamp, I'll get it in a second, on those social connections that's going to cause the pain. We have to nurture and protect our relationships. So what are some of the tools of that relational life? We have to put that margin in place. This episode of Legacy Her Way is sponsored by Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer, helping you protect your family and what you're building and preserve the legacy you are creating. Your family and your life's work deserves more than hope. It deserves a plan. Contact Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer today to make your plan. One of the things I found interesting is actually when I was reading through Margin earlier this year in 2026, I've also been going through the devotional Experiencing God, which I've gone through this multiple times, but I've decided to pick it back up this year because just getting more insight. And on the January 12th devotional for Experiencing God, the authors state, we might assume that during Jesus' prayer before his crucifixion, that he would have prayed that his disciples would have courage or remain faithful. And I went back and read through this, and I had never seen this part. I never thought it through this way, but you would think Jesus knew he was about to die. He knew that the time was near. And as he prayed for his disciples, you would think in terms of progress, because he wanted them, he'd already given them the Great Commission, already told them, go out and spread the word. So you would think in terms of progress, he would want them to go out and be fruitful, go out and be a wonderful preacher, be a wonderful apostle, disciple, bring all the people in, and that he would want them to have courage and remain faithful. Yet, what he actually asked for at that time, in John 17:21, it says that he asked that they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. So he wasn't asking for the courage. He wasn't asking for them to have success and progress. He was asking that his followers would remain united in their love for one another. That's the heart of the issue. That's the core issue, is to remain united in love for one another. And it just hit me when I read that. I was like, that is one of the things about business is, as I'm growing as a business owner, and yes, a law firm is a business. So as I'm growing as a business owner, I have to stay united in love for my spouse, for my family. And because that's the main thing, right? That's what we're doing. That's why we're building this. Most of us aren't building this for our egos. Most women are building businesses for our families, for generational wealth, for this feeling when we have a passion that we're fulfilling. You heard in the podcast this week with Jennifer Holliday, this last podcast with Jennifer Holliday as the guest, you heard her talk about how she built communities. And it wasn't something that she set out to do. It was something that she saw a need. And when she saw that need, she took action to meet that need. And I think a lot of us as women do that. We see a need and like, well, I can do something about that. Why is it? Well, is anybody else doing it? So why isn't anybody else doing it? I'll do it. And that's the way a lot of businesses actually get started. And you heard that specifically from Jennifer. I mean, it's not a business for her that she had built. It's building communities. And with her role now with the state of Alabama as the family liaison for Heroes Welcome, she is building a community statewide to welcome military families into Alabama and help them transition to Alabama. That's what Jesus is talking about. It's that feeling of community, as uniting people as one. And that's what we're doing as businesses. As a estate planning lawyer, I am oftentimes trying to be sure that people stay united. People will come to me concerned about their families being torn apart after they die. There being conflict after they die. So there's always that concern from parents. When I pass away, will my kids still get along? Will my children still talk? Will they still help one another? And one of the things about estate planning is we can reduce some of that conflict ahead of time. So we get all the documents prepared, and that helps reduce some of the conflict. And that's something that parents want, because again, it all comes back to relationships. It all comes back to those who we love. And whatever we're doing, that's who we have to keep front and center. And it's so easy to get caught up in, I've got to make this next meeting. I got to get to this networking event. I've got to do this to get more clients in. I've got to take care of these clients. I've got to do this or that, and put families aside. It's interesting that, and this is something that I've seen personally, professionally, done it myself. It's easiest to lash out at those who we love and feel comfortable with. So have you ever been in a situation where you were mad about something and it really wasn't about your spouse, but he did one little thing and they just went off on him? Well, it wasn't about that one little thing he did. It was about the other person at the office who made you mad, that client who made you mad, that situation that made you mad. But you could not lash out after that person. Or at that person. So you lashed out at your spouse because you're comfortable. You're safe. That's a safe person. And so you lashed out at them. And that's what happens quite often when we're building our business. We're comfortable with our spouse. We're safe with our spouse. We're like, he'll understand if I'm, not there. He'll understand if I'm doing these other things. And quite often he will. I've had conversations with my spouse. I just always want to make sure that we're on the same page, or that what I'm doing over here is not hurting our marriage. And so we've had multiple conversations. That's part of building that margin in, is having those conversations, having the clarity of expectations of what's going on in life, what's happening with the business, what's happening with the marriage. So those are some things that I have had to put in place just to make sure I'm not sacrificing my marriage on the altar of this business, because I'm building this for the marriage, building this for family. And I think most of us women are building our businesses for our family or for a higher purpose. Some women are building businesses as a ministry. I have a friend who has a grocery store, not a grocery store, but a restaurant. It's called a grocery. And it's ministry, but she is killing it. She's doing a wonderful job building up this little restaurant. And it's a ministry to the community. And so what we're building is not necessarily just building things for money, but building things for ministry and helping others. And she actually sends money and supports a mission in Africa. But owning a restaurant takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. It's frustrating because you've got employees, you've got customers who may complain, you've got just all different things, health department stopping in and doing checks. There's all the things that happen as you're building a business that can be aggravating, that can be time consuming. But we do it because we as women, I think mostly, do it out of love. And that's what we have to remember, that as we are building, as we're progressing, that we don't forget about those who we love, and we build the margin in our lives so that we can have that harmony across all areas of our lives, from the business to the relationships to the spiritual to health, all those things, because we want to have, it's not going to be perfect. I don't think we can ever find balance. You've heard me say I don't like that term balance. That's why I'm using the term harmony, so that we can at least be in tune, as the harmony definition is. We want to be in tune and have all those things in tune, even though they may not be perfectly balanced. One day we may be killing it with our business, but our health is suffering. And so we have to make shifts to try to bring it up. And there may be seasons of our life where we have to sacrifice one area a little bit so that the other area can grow, and then it can level back out so that you can have that harmony. But that's just what I found. That's what I found in my life. So I encourage you, as you are progressing, as you are growing, as you are hustling, because man, when you have a business, you have to hustle. As you're hustling, that you keep in perspective the main thing, and that's the relationships. That's the people who you love. And you do all you can to build your business, but even more to make sure you maintain that relationship and you don't sacrifice your relationship on the altar of your business and on the altar of progress. Thank you for listening to Legacy Her Way. If this episode spoke to you, be sure to subscribe, and so you never miss an episode. There are some wonderful guests I don't want you to miss in this season, and go back and listen to past seasons. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next conversation.